I'm Samantha, 34, and I've built a successful career as a real estate investor while my family barely acknowledges my existence. Growing up as the forgotten middle child between my golden siblings shaped me into who I am today. Last month, my cousin accidentally revealed a family reunion I wasn't invited to at a beach house they had rented. The irony? I owned that beach house. They had no idea they were planning their exclusive gathering in my sanctuary. Before I tell you how this all unfolded, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe if you've ever been underestimated by the people who should believe in you most. Family dynamics can be complicated, but mine were painfully simple. I was invisible. As the middle child between Ryan and Jessica, I learned early that no matter what I achieved, it would never measure up to my siblings' accomplishments in my parents' eyes. Ryan, 2 years older than me, was the athletic star. From Little League to varsity football, my parents never missed a single game. They proudly displayed his trophies in our living room showcase, front and center, where visitors couldn't miss them. My father, Thomas, coached his teams and spent weekends practicing with him in our backyard. "That's my boy," he would shout from the bleachers, his face beaming with pride whenever Ryan scored. Jessica, my younger sister by 18 months, was the academic prodigy. Her straight A's and academic awards earned her constant praise. "Jessica's going to be a doctor someday," my mother Margaret would tell her friends at their monthly book club meetings. Every report card was celebrated with special dinners, every academic competition attended with camera in hand. Then there was me, artistic, creative, with an entrepreneurial spirit that emerged early. In 4th grade, I started making friendship bracelets and selling them at school. When I proudly showed my father the $20 I had earned, he patted my head and said, "That's cute, honey," before turning back to help Ryan with his batting stance. My mother wasn't any better. When I painted a landscape that my art teacher, Mrs. Wilson, said showed exceptional talent, my mother glanced at it and said, "That's nice, Samantha. Did you finish your math homework? You know you're not as naturally gifted at it as Jessica." The pattern continued throughout my childhood. When I was 10, my family actually left me at a restaurant because they were so focused on rushing to Ryan's baseball game. I sat alone for 45 minutes before my mother finally returned, flustered and annoyed that I had wandered off, when in reality, they had simply forgotten me. During my junior year of high school, I had my artwork selected for a prestigious youth exhibition at our local gallery. The opening night fell on the same evening as Ryan's regional football game. "You understand, don't you, sweetie?" my mother said, not really asking. "This is such an important game for your brother's college prospects." My father didn't even pretend to consider attending my exhibition. Not a single family member showed up. My graduation gifts told the same story. Ryan received a car for his high school graduation. Jessica got the same when her time came. I received a $100 gift card and a generic card that misspelled my name as Samantha. My parents' personalities shaped these dynamics in predictable ways. My father, a successful sales manager, valued tangible achievements and social status. Athletics and academics were measurable, marketable skills in his mind. My interest in art and business were hobbies to him, not serious pursuits. The irony that he respected business, but couldn't see my entrepreneurial potential, never seemed to strike him. My mother, a pediatric nurse, had a nurturing nature that somehow never fully extended to me. She fussed over Ryan's injuries and helped Jessica study for exams, but when I needed emotional support, she often seemed distracted or unavailable. "You've always been so independent, Samantha," she would say, turning her maternal neglect into a compliment about my self-sufficiency. These experiences forced me to become self-reliant. While my siblings relied on our parents' constant approval and support, I learned to validate myself. I worked part-time jobs through high school, saving every penny. I researched colleges and financial aid options alone, eventually securing a partial scholarship to a state university 3 hours away from home. The day after my college graduation, I packed everything I owned into my used Honda Civic and drove to Seacliff, a growing coastal city. My parents seemed almost relieved that I was moving farther away, while they pressured Ryan and Jessica to settle closer to home. Our contact dwindled to obligatory holiday calls and the occasional family event where I felt more like an acquaintance than a daughter or a sister. Over those years of independence, I built my own chosen family. My roommate Andrea became the sister I never really had, supportive, caring, and genuinely interested in my life. My boss Eleanor became the mentor and mother figure who actually believed in my potential. My neighbor Marcus and his husband Derek invited me to holiday dinners when I couldn't face going home. These people became my real family, filling the emotional void my biological family had created. By the time I turned 30, I had gone almost 2 years without seeing my parents or siblings in person. They didn't seem to notice or mind. Our Christmas calls lasted less than 5 minutes, with them talking about Ryan's coaching career and Jessica's medical practice, rarely asking about my life. When they did ask, they would interrupt my answers with new updates about my siblings. This was the foundation of my relationship with my family, or lack thereof. Before the beach house incident changed everything. When I arrived in Seacliff, I had exactly $3,742 to my name, every dollar saved from waitressing and campus jobs throughout college. It wasn't much to start a new life, but it was all mine, earned without any support from my family. My first apartment was a studio above a noisy laundromat, with pipes that knocked at night and windows that rattled when the coastal winds picked up. The rent consumed half my savings immediately. I needed a job, fast. I landed an entry-level position at Coastal Realty, a small local agency. My title was administrative assistant, but in reality, I did everything from answering phones to organizing files to picking up coffee. The pay was minimal, but I was fascinated by the business. I listened intently whenever agents discussed properties, market trends, or investment strategies. At night, I would study real estate textbooks, borrowing them from the public library since I couldn't afford to buy them. I learned about property values, interest rates, market analysis, and investment strategies. I started attending open houses on weekends, not as a potential buyer, but as a student of the market. I wanted to understand what made certain properties valuable and others sit unsold. After 6 months, I had saved enough for the real estate licensing exam. I studied during lunch breaks and after work, often falling asleep with practice tests on my lap. When I passed on my first attempt, not a single family member congratulated me, because I hadn't told them. Their lack of interest in my life had taught me to keep my achievements to myself. As a newly licensed agent, I started small. My first commission came from helping a retired couple downsize from their 4-bedroom home to a condominium. I remember holding that check, $2,375, and feeling a surge of pride that eclipsed any validation I had ever sought from my parents. I lived frugally, keeping my studio apartment even as my income increased. Every extra dollar went into my savings account, earmarked for my first investment property. While other young agents spent their commissions on nice cars or expensive clothes, I drove my aging Honda and shopped at thrift stores. My colleagues didn't understand my discipline, but I had a plan. 2 years into my career, I met Eleanor Matthews, a 60-something real estate investor who came to our office looking for commercial properties. She had built an impressive portfolio over 30 years, starting with nothing. Something about her reminded me of the mother I had always wanted, sharp, business savvy, but also genuinely kind. When Eleanor heard me giving advice to a first-time home buyer about property taxes and appreciation potential, she waited until the client left and then approached my desk. "You know your stuff," she said, studying me with intelligent eyes. "Most agents just want to close the deal. You actually care about your clients' financial futures." That conversation led to coffee, which led to lunch, which eventually led to Eleanor becoming my mentor. She taught me what no textbook or real estate course could: the instinct for finding undervalued properties with potential. "Look for the ugly ducklings," she advised. "The properties with good bones but cosmetic problems that scare away most buyers. Those are your opportunities." Under Eleanor's guidance, I saved enough for a down payment on my first investment property by my 27th birthday, a neglected duplex in an up-and-coming neighborhood. The property needed work, but the structure was sound. I spent weekends painting, replacing fixtures, and landscaping. I rented both units within 2 weeks of completion, with the rental income covering my mortgage plus a small profit. Over the next few years, I gradually built my portfolio. Each property generated income that I reinvested into the next opportunity. By 30, I had 5 properties and had left Coastal Realty to manage my investments full-time. By 32, that number had doubled to 10 properties across Seacliff and neighboring towns. Through it all, my family remained oblivious to my success. Our infrequent calls never delved into my financial situation, and I never volunteered the information. Part of me wanted to prove I could succeed without their support or acknowledgement. Another part feared they would only value me once I had material success, and I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I owned. My lifestyle remained modest despite my growing net worth. I eventually moved to a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment, but nothing flashy. I still drove a practical car, though newer and more reliable than my college Honda. My philosophy was that true wealth should provide security and freedom, not just material possessions. Eleanor had taught me that the most successful investors maintained low profiles and avoided flaunting their wealth. Then came the beach house. The property that would unexpectedly bring my family back into my life in the most dramatic way possible. I discovered it during a coastal drive one drizzly Sunday afternoon. Set back from the road on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the Victorian-style house had clearly seen better days. Paint peeled from its weathered siding, several shutters hung askew, and the garden had long since surrendered to weeds. But the location was breathtaking, with panoramic ocean views and private beach access via a winding staircase. A faded "for sale" sign swung from a post near the overgrown driveway. On impulse, I called the number. The property had been on the market for over a year, the agent told me, its condition and high asking price deterring potential buyers. The elderly owner had passed away, and her children lived out of state with no interest in renovation. I toured the house the next day. Despite its dilapidated state, I fell in love with its potential. High ceilings, large windows that maximized the ocean view, a wraparound porch perfect for watching sunsets. The structure needed work but was fundamentally sound, another ugly duckling, waiting to be transformed. After tough negotiations and a thorough inspection, I purchased the beach house for 20% below asking price. It was my largest investment yet, requiring most of my liquid savings and a substantial mortgage, but my instincts told me it was worth the risk. The renovation took 8 months of intensive work. I hired contractors for the major structural issues, but did much of the cosmetic work myself. Weekends and evenings were spent stripping wallpaper, refinishing hardwood floors, and painting endless trim. Every decision, from the kitchen backsplash to the porch furniture, was made with loving attention to detail. When the work was finally complete, the transformation was stunning. The once neglected Victorian had become a showcase property with modern amenities that complemented its historic character. The 5 bedrooms each had ocean views, the kitchen was worthy of a culinary magazine, and the great room with its stone fireplace became my favorite place to unwind after long days. Though I occasionally rented it out for select weeks during peak tourist season, the beach house was primarily my personal sanctuary. It was the first property I had bought not purely as an investment, but as a place for myself, a home that represented everything I had achieved on my own. I never mentioned the beach house to my family. Why would I? They had never shown interest in my life or career. It was my private achievement, a testament to my journey from the overlooked middle child to a successful, independent woman. Little did I know that this private sanctuary would soon become the stage for a long-overdue family reckoning. The revelation came on an ordinary Tuesday evening as I was preparing dinner in my apartment. My phone rang, displaying my cousin Megan's name, a rare occurrence, as we only spoke a few times a year despite having been close as children. "Samantha, how are you?" Megan sounded genuinely happy to hear my voice when I answered. "I just realized we haven't finalized what we're bringing to the reunion next month. I'm thinking of making Grandma's potato salad, but I wanted to check if you were already planning that." I paused, spatula in hand. What reunion? The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. The family reunion, Megan finally said, her voice now uncertain. At the beach house in Seacliff. Please tell me you knew about this. My stomach tightened. No, Megan. This is the first I'm hearing of any reunion. Oh God, she whispered. I just assumed. Everyone's been talking about it for months in the family group chat. What family group chat? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The one your dad started last year. It has everyone in it, all the aunts, uncles, cousins. I thought you were just quiet in it. You're not in it, are you? No, I said simply, feeling a familiar hurt settle in my chest. I'm not. Megan's embarrassment was palpable through the phone. I'm so sorry, Sam. This is awful. I can't believe they didn't. I just assumed. It's not your fault, I assured her, though my mind is racing. Can you tell me more about this reunion? When exactly is it happening? Megan hesitated before answering. It's the third weekend of next month. Your parents organized it. They found this amazing beach house to rent in Seacliff. They said it was a great deal because it's usually booked solid. Everyone's coming. All your aunts and uncles, most of the cousins. It's supposed to be a 3-day event, Friday through Sunday. My hand gripped the counter for support. This beach house, where exactly is it located? On Lighthouse Point Road, I think. Your dad sent photos to everyone. It's this gorgeous blue Victorian with white trim, right on the cliff overlooking the ocean. It looks like something from a magazine. I closed my eyes. She was describing my house. My sanctuary. The place I had poured my heart, soul, and savings into creating. Samantha? Are you still there? Megan's voice pulled me back. Yes, I managed. I'm just processing. I'm going to call your mom right now, Megan said firmly. This is completely unacceptable. They can't just exclude you from a family reunion. No, don't, I said quickly. I'd rather handle this my way. But I would appreciate if you could send me screenshots of the group chat, just so I know what's been planned. After hanging up with Megan, I sat at my kitchen table, dinner forgotten, scrolling through dozens of screenshots she had texted me. There it was, months of planning a family reunion I knew nothing about. My father sharing photos of MY Beach House, calling it our amazing rental for the weekend. My mother discussing sleeping arrangements, assigning rooms to everyone but me. Aunts, uncles, and cousins expressing excitement. My brother Ryan volunteering to organize beach activities. My sister Jessica planning the menus. Not once in hundreds of messages did anyone ask, "What about Samantha?" The hurt was swift and sharp, but not surprising. This was merely a more elaborate version of being forgotten at the restaurant when I was 10, or having no one attend my art exhibition. The difference was that I was no longer that powerless child or insecure teenager. I was a successful woman who, by a twist of fate, owned the very property they had chosen for their exclusive gathering. I picked up my phone and called Jessica. If anyone would give me the unvarnished truth, it would be my blunt younger sister. "This is a surprise," she answered, not bothering to hide her lack of enthusiasm. "We usually only talk at Christmas." "I just heard about the family reunion next month," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Megan mentioned it. A pause.
"Oh, that."
"Yes, that. Why wasn't I invited, Jessica?" She sighed dramatically. "Look, it wasn't personal. Mom and Dad organized everything, and you know how they are. They probably just forgot to add you to the group chat. For 7 months? They forgot to invite their own daughter to a family reunion for 7 months. Well, you're hardly ever in touch with anyone," she said defensively. "And you live right there in Seacliff. We figured if you wanted to come, you'd hear about it eventually and join us." The casual cruelty of her statement took my breath away. So, I wasn't explicitly uninvited. I just wasn't important enough to remember. "Don't be so dramatic, Samantha. It's not like we plotted to exclude you. It just happened. Anyway, now you know, so problem solved. You can come if you want. It's at this amazing beach house Dad found. Right on the ocean with private beach access and everything. Some kind of bargain rental because the owner mostly keeps it for personal use. I bit back the urge to tell her exactly who that owner was. Tell me more about this beach house. It's gorgeous. Dad sent photos. 5 bedrooms, gourmet kitchen, huge deck overlooking the water. Mom and Dad are taking the master suite, of course. Ryan and his wife get the second largest room because of the baby. I get the corner room with the bay window. You could probably crash on the pull-out sofa in the den if you come. It's not like you have a partner who needs accommodation. The casual way she relegated me to a sofa in my own house would have been laughable if it weren't so infuriating. Every bedroom she was describing, including the master suite my parents had claimed, I had personally renovated. I had selected every paint color, every fixture, every piece of furniture. After ending the call with Jessica, I immediately phoned Andrea. If anyone could help me process this situation rationally, it would be my best friend. They did what? Andrea exclaimed after I explained. And it's your house? This is beyond belief, even for your family. I know, I said, pacing my kitchen. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. So, what are you going to do? Andrea asked. Please tell me you're not just going to let them get away with this. I hesitated. Part of me wants to call my father right now and tell him he's been scammed, that the rental is actually my property. Another part wants to just let them arrive and discover me there. The second option, Andrea said without hesitation. Definitely the second option. Can you imagine their faces when they realize they're in your house? That you, the daughter they couldn't bother to invite, own this beautiful property they're so excited about. It would be quite the revelation, I admitted. But I don't want to create a scene that ruins the weekend for everyone else, the aunts, uncles, cousins who had nothing to do with excluding me. Samantha, Andrea said firmly, you've spent your entire life worrying about everyone else's feelings while they completely disregard yours. For once, let them face the consequences of their actions. You don't have to be mean about it. Just be there in your own home when they arrive. After much deliberation, I decided Andrea was right. I wouldn't call ahead. I wouldn't warn them. I would simply be present in my own home when my family arrived for their exclusive reunion. The revelation would unfold naturally, and how they handled it would tell me everything I needed to know about whether our relationship was salvageable. The next 3 weeks were a roller coaster of emotions as I prepared for the confrontation. Anxiety kept me awake some nights. Other nights, I fell asleep imagining the shocked expressions on my parents' and siblings' faces. Part of me dreaded the inevitable drama, while another part, a part one wasn't entirely proud of, looked forward to finally being seen. I marked the reunion weekend on my calendar and began making preparations. This would be either the beginning of healing or the final chapter in my relationship with my family. Either way, it would be on my terms in my house, with my newfound strength. As the reunion weekend approached, my initial righteous anger evolved into a complex mixture of emotions. Confronting my family meant confronting decades of hurt, invisibility, and unresolved feelings. This wasn't just about a beach house or a snubbed invitation. It was about finally demanding the recognition and respect I deserved. 2 weeks before the reunion, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Lydia Martinez, my therapist of 3 years. Her office, with its comfortable leather chairs and soothing blue walls, had become a safe space for processing my family trauma over the years. This situation is certainly unique, Dr. Martinez said after I explained what had happened. But it presents an opportunity for setting boundaries in a powerful way. I'm afraid I'll lose my composure, I admitted, that I'll either break down in tears or lash out in anger. She nodded thoughtfully. Those are natural responses to hurt. But remember, you're not that powerless child anymore. You literally own the house they're entering. That gives you a position of strength, not just materially but symbolically. How do I use that position without becoming petty or vindictive? I asked. I don't want to stoop to their level. Focus on what you want from this encounter, she advised. Not revenge, but recognition. Not punishment, but acknowledgement. Prepare what you'll say, how you'll say it, even what you'll wear. Control the elements you can control and accept that their reactions belong to them, not to you. With Dr. Martinez's guidance, I crafted a strategy for the confrontation, not to humiliate my family, but to establish my presence and worth in a way they couldn't ignore. My next step was selecting the perfect outfit, something that projected confidence without trying too hard. After trying on nearly everything in my closet, I settled on a tailored navy blazer over a simple white blouse, paired with well-fitting jeans and low heels. Professional yet relaxed, appropriate for a woman in her own beach house. I wanted to look successful but not flashy, confident but not intimidating. The week before the reunion, I packed a suitcase with personal items from my apartment to place strategically around the beach house. Family photos I had kept despite everything, my college diploma in its frame, books from my personal collection. Small touches that would make it undeniably mine before they even realized the truth. I also gathered important documents: the property deed, recent tax statements, renovation invoices, and photos of the beach house before and after my renovations. I didn't know if my family would demand proof of ownership, but I wanted to be prepared for any skepticism. The day before my family was set to arrive, I drove the familiar coastal highway to my beach house. The 2-hour journey from my apartment gave me time to reflect on the path that had brought me here. Each mile marker seemed to represent a year of independence, a step further from the pain of my childhood, and closer to the woman I had become. I stopped at Rosedale Point, a scenic overlook halfway to Seacliff where I often paused during trips to the beach house. Standing at the railing, watching waves crash against the rocks below, I called Eleanor. My mentor had become like family to me, and I needed her steadying influence before facing my biological relatives. "You sound nervous," she noted after I greeted her. "Terrified might be more accurate," I admitted. "I keep wondering if this is the right approach." "Samantha," Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm, "you didn't create this situation. They excluded you from a family event and then unknowingly chose your property for their gathering. The universe has handed you an opportunity for truth that's almost too perfect to be coincidence. What if it goes badly?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "What if this permanently damages whatever relationship we still have?" "Honey, from what you've told me over the years, that relationship has been damaged for decades. The question isn't whether confronting them might break something. It's whether continuing as you have been is worth the cost to your self-respect." Her words resonated deeply. I thanked her, promised to call with an update, and continued my journey with renewed resolve. I arrived at the beach house in late afternoon. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the blue Victorian, making it look like something from a fairy tale. The sight of it, my greatest achievement, my true home, strengthened my resolve. This house represented everything I had accomplished without my family's support or approval. It was the physical manifestation of my independence and success. Entering the house, I was struck by how perfect everything looked. The cleaning service had been there earlier, ensuring every surface gleamed. Fresh flowers, arrangements I had ordered, brightened each room. The refrigerator and pantry were stocked with quality ingredients for the weekend. I had even arranged for a local caterer to deliver a welcome dinner for Friday evening. My family would arrive to a fully prepared meal. I moved through the rooms, adding personal touches. In the living room, I placed family photos on the mantel, old pictures of grandparents, holiday gatherings, even a few rare shots where I appeared alongside my siblings. In the study, I arranged my collection of art books and my college diploma. In the master bedroom, which my parents had claimed sight unseen, I left a framed photo of myself with Eleanor at the property closing, both of us holding the keys to the beach house. As night fell, I sat alone on the deck with a glass of wine, listening to the waves below. Tomorrow would change everything for better or worse. I had spent years building my life apart from my family's indifference. Now I would face them not as the forgotten middle child, but as a successful woman in her own right, in her own home. I slept fitfully that night, waking several times to the sound of the ocean and my own anxious thoughts. Morning brought a sense of calm determination. I showered, dressed in my carefully selected outfit, and styled my hair in loose waves that suited the beach setting while looking effortlessly polished. According to the group chat screenshots Megan had sent, my family planned to arrive around noon. I made myself breakfast, cleaned up methodically, and then positioned myself in my home office. A small room off the main living area, with a clear view of the driveway through its bay window. At 11:42, the first car appeared, my Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert, always punctual. They emerged from their sedan, faces lighting up as they took in the house. Linda pointed at the ocean view, clearly impressed. More vehicles arrived in quick succession, cousins with their spouses and children, my Uncle Steve and his new wife, my grandparents being helped from my cousin Mark's SUV. At 12:15, my brother Ryan's Range Rover pulled up, his wife Jennifer and their 6-month-old daughter Lily inside. Ryan had done well as a high school athletic director, but I knew from Megan that our parents had helped with the down payment on their house, something they had never offered me. My sister Jessica arrived next in her BMW convertible, designer sunglasses perched on her head, looking every bit the successful dermatologist she had become. She paused to take selfies with the house in the background before grabbing her expensive luggage. Finally, at 12:35, my parents' car appeared. My father, looking older than I remembered but still fit for a man in his 60s, stepped out and surveyed the property with evident satisfaction. My mother, elegant as always in her casual but clearly expensive outfit, joined him in admiring the view. From my window, I watched as they all exclaimed over the house, taking photos, claiming bedrooms, exploring the deck and the path down to the beach. No one wondered where the owner was, or how they would get keys. The rental scammer had apparently provided door codes, which happened to work because I hadn't changed them after the last legitimate rental 3 weeks earlier. My parents, predictably, headed straight for the master suite, pulling their luggage down the upstairs hallway without consulting anyone else. Ryan and Jennifer claimed the large corner bedroom with space for the baby's portable crib. Jessica took the room with the bay window and private balcony. I waited until they had all arrived, until suitcases were being unpacked and excited voices filled every room of my house. Then, taking a deep breath, I opened the door of my office and stepped into the hallway, ready to make my presence known. The stage was set. The moment of truth had arrived. I stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the sounds of my family settling into my home. Laughter drifted from the kitchen where several cousins were unpacking food and drinks. Upstairs, I could hear the muffled voices of my parents as they claimed the master bedroom. From the deck came the excited exclamations of aunts and uncles admiring the ocean view. No one had noticed me yet. I smoothed my blazer, squared my shoulders, and walked calmly into the great room where most of my extended family had gathered. My cousin Mark saw me first. His easy smile froze, confusion flickering across his face. "Samantha, what are you doing here?" Conversations halted. Heads turned. A dozen pairs of eyes fixed on me with expressions ranging from surprise to embarrassment to genuine pleasure. "Hello, everyone," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Welcome to my home." Before anyone could respond, my mother appeared from the kitchen, a glass of wine already in hand. She stopped short when she saw me, her perfectly maintained smile faltering. "Samantha? What a surprise." Her tone suggested it wasn't a pleasant one. "I didn't realize you knew about our little gathering." "Megan mentioned it," I replied simply. My mother's eyes darted to Megan, who stood her ground with an apologetic but defiant expression. "Well, this is awkward," my mother continued, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. "We didn't exactly plan for extra guests. I'm not sure where we'll put you." From the staircase came my father's voice. "Is that Samantha? How did you find us?" He descended into the great room, his initial shock quickly replaced by suspicion, as if I had somehow tracked them down. "I didn't need to find you," I replied calmly. "You found me, or more accurately, you found my house." A confused silence fell over the room. "What are you talking about?" my father asked. "We rented this place months ago through an online listing." I moved to the built-in bookshelf where I had placed the property documents earlier.
"No, Dad.
You were scammed by a fake listing. This house has been my property for nearly 2 years. I handed him the deed with my name clearly listed as the owner. His face, already flushed from carrying luggage, drained of color as he stared at the document. "This can't be right," he muttered. By now, Ryan and Jessica had joined the growing crowd in the great room. Ryan's face darkened with anger when he saw me. "What kind of stunt is this, Sam? Did you follow us here to crash the reunion?" "I didn't follow anyone," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "I drove to my own property, which I renovated from top to bottom, where I spend most weekends, and which someone apparently listed fraudulently as a rental." Jessica snatched the property deed from our father's hands, her eyes widening as she scanned it. "This has to be fake," she declared, though her voice lacked conviction. From the corner, my Aunt Linda stepped forward. "Let me see that, Jessica." As the family attorney, her opinion carried weight. She studied the document carefully, then looked up at me. "This appears to be legitimate. Samantha is indeed the legal owner of this property." The room erupted in confused chatter. My mother sank onto the nearest chair, her wine glass dangerously tilted. My father continued to stare at me as if I were a stranger. "But how could you afford a place like this?" he finally asked, his tone somewhere between disbelief and accusation. "You're an administrative assistant at a real estate office." I couldn't help the small, bitter laugh that escaped me. I was an administrative assistant 8 years ago. I've been a licensed real estate agent for 7 years and a full-time investor for 5. I own multiple properties throughout Seacliff and neighboring communities. Not that you ever asked about my career. My mother found her voice. "But we sent money to the owner. We have confirmation emails, payment receipts." "You sent money to a scammer," I corrected her. "It happens more often than you'd think in vacation rentals. Someone creates a fake listing using photos they find online, collects payment, and disappears. I had this place listed on a vacation rental site briefly last year before deciding to keep it primarily for personal use. The photos are probably still floating around online." Ryan stepped closer, his athletic frame tense with anger. "So, you knew about this all along? You let us plan this entire reunion, pay money to some scammer, and drive all the way here just so you could what? Make us look stupid?" "No, Ryan. I had no idea about the reunion until 3 weeks ago when Megan accidentally mentioned it, assuming I already knew. That was the first I heard about any family gathering, the one I wasn't invited to." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Here we go with the victim routine again. No one specifically excluded you. You're just never around." "I'm never around?" I repeated incredulously. "I live 2 hours away. I answer every call, return every message. But no one calls. No one messages. No one added me to the family group chat where this entire reunion was planned for 7 months." My father waved his hand dismissively. "We figured if you were interested in family events, you would make more of an effort to stay in touch." The injustice of his statement hit me like a physical blow. Make more of an effort? Do you have any idea how many holidays I spent alone because no one thought to invite me? How many of my calls went unreturned? How many life events I celebrated without a single family member present? From the back of the room, my cousin Megan spoke up. "It's true, Uncle Thomas. Samantha isn't in the group chat. I checked after I talked to her. Everyone else in the extended family is there, every single cousin, even distant ones we hardly ever see. But not Samantha." My mother's face flushed. "Well, that must have been an oversight." "A 7-month oversight?" I challenged. "For your own daughter?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Some relatives found sudden interest in their shoes or the ocean view. Others watched the unfolding drama with undisguised fascination. My Aunt Linda cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should all take a step back. Clearly, there's been a misunderstanding about the property and the invitation. The question now is how we proceed from here." My father straightened his shoulders. "Well, obviously we'll need to find alternative accommodations. I'll start calling hotels in the area." "That won't be necessary," I said, surprising myself with the words. "This house is 5 bedrooms and can comfortably sleep 16 people with the pull-out sofas. You're all welcome to stay. You'd let us stay? My mother asked suspiciously. After making such a scene? I met her gaze directly. I didn't make a scene, Mom. I simply revealed the truth, that this is my house, and that I was excluded from a family reunion. But yes, you can all stay on one condition. What's that? My father asked warily. That you acknowledge what happened here. Not just today, but for years. That you recognize the pattern of excluding me and commit to changing it. I don't want apologies if they're not sincere. I want awareness and a genuine desire to do better. My ultimatum hung in the air. Family members exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others thoughtful. My parents looked stunned, as if they had never considered their behavior from my perspective. Ryan's anger seemed to deflate slightly, while Jessica's expression remained unreadable. In that tense moment of silence, the future of our family relationship balanced on a knife's edge. How they responded would determine whether this confrontation would lead to healing or become the final chapter in our story. The silence that followed my ultimatum seemed to stretch for an eternity. Then, like a dam breaking, everyone started speaking at once. I had no idea you weren't invited, Samantha, my Aunt Linda said, her face flushed with embarrassment. This is ridiculous, Ryan muttered. She's always making everything about her. Maybe we should all just go to hotels, Jessica suggested, already reaching for her phone. My father raised his hands for silence. Everyone calm down. Let's not make hasty decisions. He turned to me, his expression a mixture of irritation and grudging respect. You own this house. Legally, we have no right to be here without your permission. If you're offering to let us stay, we should at least hear you out. It wasn't exactly the acknowledgement I had hoped for, but it was a start. I think we should stay, my cousin Megan said firmly. And I think we owe Samantha an apology. I felt terrible when I realized she didn't know about the reunion. I can't imagine how hurtful that must have been. The group gradually split into factions. Some, like Megan and my Aunt Linda, openly supported me. Others, particularly my immediate family, remained defensive. The rest seemed uncomfortable but unwilling to take sides in what they saw as a private family matter. My Uncle Robert, always the peacemaker, suggested everyone take some time to settle in and process the situation before further discussion. It's been a long drive for most of us, and this is a lot to take in. Why don't we all unpack, maybe take a walk on the beach, and regroup for dinner? His reasonable suggestion broke the tension somewhat. People dispersed, though whispers and concerned glances followed me as I moved through my own home. I retreated to my office to collect myself, only to find my father knocking on the door 10 minutes later. Can we talk? He asked, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. Maybe on the deck, privately? I nodded and followed him outside. The afternoon sun glittered on the water below as we sat in the Adirondack chairs I had carefully selected during the renovation. For several minutes, we sat in silence, watching the waves. Finally, my father spoke, his eyes still on the horizon. This is quite a property, he said. You've done well for yourself. Thank you, I replied, waiting for more. He sighed heavily. I don't know what to say, Samantha. This situation is unprecedented. Which part? Finding out your daughter owns a beautiful beach house, or realizing you excluded her from a family reunion? He winced slightly. Both, I suppose. Another long pause. I never intended to make you feel left out. Intentions don't always matter, Dad. Actions do. And the action of planning a family event without including me speaks volumes. He turned to face me, his expression troubled. Looking back, I can see how it might appear that way. But you've always been so independent.
So separate from the family.
Ryan and Jessica needed more guidance, more support. You seemed fine on your own. I was fine on my own because I had to be, I said quietly. Not because I wanted to be. There's a difference between being independent and being excluded. My father ran a hand through his graying hair. I suppose I never thought of it that way. You were always the steady one, the one we didn't have to worry about. Ryan had his sports injuries, his college applications. Jessica had her academic pressure, her anxiety about medical school. You just handled things. Because no one offered to handle them for me, I pointed out. Did you ever wonder why I moved so far away after college? Why I rarely visit? It wasn't because I didn't want a relationship with my family. It was because it hurt too much to be an afterthought. For perhaps the first time in my life, I saw my father struggle for words. I didn't know, he finally said. I honestly didn't realize you felt that way. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the pattern, but it was a crack in the wall of denial. We talked for nearly an hour on that deck, covering ground we should have traversed years ago. He didn't apologize outright, but he listened, really listened, as I described growing up as the forgotten middle child. As the afternoon progressed, similar conversations unfolded throughout the house. My mother found me in the kitchen as I prepared coffee for everyone. "This house is magnificent," she said, running her hand along the marble countertop I had splurged on during the renovation. "You have excellent taste." "Thank you," I replied, measuring coffee grounds into the filter. "I don't understand why you never told us about any of this," she continued, gesturing around the kitchen. "Your success, this house. We would have been proud." I looked at her directly. "Would you? Or would you have found a way to minimize it, like you did with everything else I accomplished growing up?" Tears filled her eyes. "That's not fair, Samantha. Isn't it? When I won that art competition in high school, you said it was just a local contest. When I graduated with honors, you spent the entire celebration dinner talking about Jessica's college plans. Why would I share my adult accomplishments with you, when that was my experience growing up?" My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I never meant to make you feel less important. I thought you were fine. You never seemed to need us the way your siblings did." "I needed you just as much," I said softly. "I just learned not to show it because it never made a difference." She reached for my hand, but stopped short of taking it, her uncertainty palpable. "I don't know how to fix this." "Start by seeing me," I suggested. "Really seeing me, not as an afterthought or an obligation, but as your daughter who deserves the same consideration as your other children." The coffee finished brewing, and I left her to contemplate my words as I carried the pot to the living room where others had gathered. My brother Ryan cornered me later as I was setting out snacks on the deck. "So this whole time you've been secretly rich, and now you're making us look bad," he accused, though his tone lacked its earlier hostility. "That's not what this is about, Ryan." "Then what is it about? Embarrassing the family? Getting revenge?" I shook my head. "It's about being acknowledged. Being included. Being treated like I matter as much as you and Jessica do."
He scoffed. "Come on, Sam.
We all had different relationships with Mom and Dad. That's just how families work. Different relationships, yes. Being consistently forgotten or excluded. That's not normal, Ryan, and you know it." He was silent for a moment, then admitted grudgingly, "I did think it was weird that you weren't in the group chat. I even mentioned it to Dad once. He said you'd made it clear you weren't interested in family events." "When did I ever say that?" I asked, genuinely bewildered. Ryan shrugged. "I don't know. That's just what he said." Our conversation was interrupted by my Uncle Robert, who had overheard enough to join in. "For what it's worth," he said, "I always thought you got a raw deal in the family, Samantha. Your parents mean well, but they definitely played favorites. I should have said something over the years, and I'm sorry I didn't." His acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you, Uncle Robert. That means a lot." As dinner approached, my cousin Emily sought me out in the hallway. "Can I talk to you privately?" she asked. "In my office," she confessed. "I know exactly how you feel, Sam. In my family, it was always about my sister Abigail, her grades, her popularity, her perfect life. I was the weird one, the creative one no one quite knew what to do with. Watching how your parents treated you growing up actually made me feel less alone." Her words touched me deeply. "I had no idea you felt that way, Em." She smiled sadly. "We overlooked kids have to stick together, right? Anyway, I just wanted you to know I think you're amazing. This house, your success, you did it all, without the support system your siblings had. That's incredibly impressive." By the time everyone gathered for dinner, the catered meal I had arranged, though I let them believe it was a fortunate coincidence, the mood had shifted. There was still tension, particularly with my immediate family, but also a new undercurrent of awareness and reflection. As we sat around the large dining table I had custom-built for the space, my Aunt Linda raised her glass. "I'd like to propose a toast to Samantha, not just for her generosity in letting us stay in her beautiful home despite the circumstances, but for having the courage to speak her truth today. It couldn't have been easy, and I admire your strength." Glasses raised around the table, even my parents and siblings joining somewhat reluctantly. In that moment, I felt truly seen by my family for perhaps the first time. After dinner, as conversations continued in small groups throughout the house, Jessica approached me on the deck where I had gone for a moment of solitude. "So all those years of being the overlooked middle child, and now you're the successful one," she said, her tone hard to read. "Success means different things to different people," I replied. "You're a doctor." "That's incredible, Jessica. I've always admired your intelligence and drive." She seemed taken aback by the compliment. "Thanks," she said after a moment. "Your house it's really something. I guess I just don't understand why you kept all this a secret. Were you planning some big reveal all along?" I shook my head. No dramatic reveal planned. I just stopped sharing my life with people who didn't seem interested. "When was the last time you asked me about my career, my home, my dreams? When was the last time any of you did?" Jessica was quiet for a long moment. "I never thought about it that way," she finally admitted. "I was so focused on my own path, and Mom and Dad were always so focused on making sure I stayed on it. I guess I never considered what was happening with you." "That's the problem in a nutshell," I said gently. "No one considered me. Not out of malice, maybe, but the effect was the same." As night fell and the house grew quiet, family members retreating to their assigned rooms, I reflected on the day's events. Nothing had been fully resolved, no dramatic apologies or promises of complete change. But conversations had started. Awareness had been raised. For the first time, my perspective was being heard, and by some at least, understood. It wasn't everything I had hoped for, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings are enough. The next morning, I woke early and went for a solitary walk on the beach, needing time alone to process the previous day's emotional intensity. The tide had receded, leaving wet sand perfect for footprints that disappeared with each incoming wave, a fitting metaphor for the impermanence of old patterns, I thought. When I returned to the house, I found my father sitting alone at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring out at the ocean. He looked up when I entered, his expression more open than I'd seen it in years. "I couldn't sleep much," he admitted. "Kept thinking about everything you said yesterday." I poured myself coffee and sat across from him, waiting. "You were right," he said finally, the words seeming to cost him considerable effort. "About the pattern of excluding you. About taking you for granted. About failing to see your potential." He looked down at his coffee cup. "I was wrong, Samantha. We were wrong. Your mother and I'm sorry." The simple, straightforward apology I had waited decades to hear brought a lump to my throat.
"Thank you, Dad."
"That means a lot." "I was talking to your mother most of the night," he continued. "Looking back, we can see how differently we treated you compared to your siblings. At the time, it seemed natural. Ryan needed sports equipment and coaching, Jessica needed academic support. You seemed so self-sufficient that we let you be. That wasn't fair." "No," I agreed softly. "It wasn't. And this house," he gestured around the kitchen. "What you've accomplished on your own, it's remarkable, Samantha. I spent years trying to nurture Ryan's athletic abilities and Jessica's academic talents, but I completely missed your business acumen. That was my loss." His words were healing balm on old wounds. Not a complete cure, but a start. As the morning progressed, family members emerged from their rooms, gathering for the breakfast I had prepared. The atmosphere was noticeably different from the previous day, less tense, more thoughtful. My mother approached me as I was setting out fruit platters. "Your father told me about your conversation," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I want you to know I've been doing a lot of thinking too." She took a deep breath. "I wasn't the mother you needed me to be. I didn't see you clearly, and that was my failure, not yours. Tears stung my eyes at her admission. I just wanted to be seen, Mom. To matter as much as Ryan and Jessica. You matter, she said firmly, reaching for my hand. You always mattered. I just didn't show it the way I should have. She glanced around the kitchen. This beautiful home you've created, it shows not just your success, but your vision. You always had that, even as a little girl with your art projects and bracelet business. I should have nurtured that instead of pushing you toward things that came naturally to your siblings. After breakfast, I offered my family a proper tour of the beach house, sharing the story of how I discovered it, the renovation process, and the business strategy that had allowed me to purchase it. My father asked thoughtful questions about my investment approach. My mother admired the design choices I had made. Even Ryan showed genuine interest in how I had managed the project. You know, he said as we stood on the deck overlooking the ocean, I always thought you disappeared from family events because you didn't care. I never considered you might be staying away because you felt unwelcome. Not unwelcome exactly, I clarified. Just irrelevant. Like an afterthought. He winced. That might be worse.
I'm sorry, Sam.
I contributed to that by always taking Mom and Dad's attention for granted. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I've always admired how you blazed your own trail. I followed the path Dad created for me, sports, coaching, the athletic director position at his alma mater. You created your own path, from nothing. That takes courage. Jessica joined us, her usual sharp edges softened. So, do you think you could give me some investment advice sometime? I've been saving for a vacation property, but everything I look at seems overpriced. Her request for my expertise, a tacit acknowledgement of my success, felt like a significant shift. I'd be happy to help, I told her. Real estate investment is all about seeing potential others miss. It's not that different from your work in dermatology looking beneath the surface. She smiled, perhaps the first genuine smile she directed at me in years. I never thought of it that way. Thanks, Sam. As the day continued, more family members approached me individually. My parents suggested implementing monthly family video calls to stay better connected. Jessica proposed a sister's weekend in the spring. Ryan invited me to his daughter Lily's first birthday celebration. These were small steps but meaningful ones. That evening, we gathered on the beach for a family photo, the first in years that included me. Instead of being positioned awkwardly on the edge as in past photos, I was placed in the center as the host and owner of the property where we had gathered. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. After the photo, my Aunt Linda pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, she said simply. Not just for your success, but for having the courage to speak your truth to the family. That's not easy. No, I agreed. It wasn't, but necessary. How are you feeling about everything? She asked. Really feeling, beneath the politeness. I considered her question carefully. Cautiously optimistic, I finally said. One weekend can't erase decades of patterns. But it's a start. A good start, she affirmed. Just remember, maintaining healthy boundaries doesn't mean shutting people out. It means teaching them how to treat you properly. On Sunday afternoon, as family members packed to leave, the goodbyes were different from any I had experienced before. There were real hugs, genuine invitations, specific plans for future contact. My mother held me longer than she ever had, whispering, I'm so proud of you, Samantha. So proud of the woman you've become. After everyone had gone, I sat alone on my deck, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. The house felt different somehow, no longer just my private sanctuary, but a place where healing had begun. I called Andrea to process the weekend's events. So, they actually acknowledged the pattern? She asked, sounding impressed. My father explicitly apologized, I told her. My mother too. It wasn't perfect, but it was sincere. And how do you feel about it all? I watched a seagull dive into the waves. Like I've set down a heavy backpack I didn't even realize I was carrying. The hurt isn't completely gone, but it's lighter somehow. What happens next? Andrea asked. Honestly, I'm not sure. We made plans. Calls, visits, better communication. Whether those materialize remains to be seen. But for the first time, I feel like an actual member of the family, not just an obligation. Will you hold them to their promises? Yes, I said firmly. That's the difference now. I won't silently accept being forgotten or excluded again. I've found my voice, and I intend to keep using it. After we hung up, I walked down to the beach and stood at the water's edge. The waves erased my footprints just as they had that morning, but I knew I had left a more permanent mark on my family this weekend, not through confrontation or vindictiveness, but through honesty and strength. The path forward would require continued effort from all of us. Old patterns don't disappear overnight. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt hopeful about my relationship with my family. Not because they had suddenly become perfect, but because they had finally seen me. Really seen me, and acknowledged their role in our fractured relationship. As the last light faded from the sky, I made a promise to myself. I would remain open to this new chapter with my family while maintaining the boundaries and self-respect I had worked so hard to build. My worth wasn't dependent on their validation, but their recognition of it had begun a healing process I hadn't realized I needed. Standing there on the shore of my property, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had built this life for myself, without their support or acknowledgement. That achievement was mine alone, and nothing could diminish it. But sharing it with them, on my terms, in my space, as the confident woman I had become, had transformed something broken into something with the potential to be whole again. Have you ever had to stand up to your family to be truly seen? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. This journey of setting boundaries while keeping the door open for healing is never easy, but it's worth it. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And remember, sometimes the most important family reunion isn't about gathering in the same place. It's about finally meeting each other as equals. Thank you for being here, and I wish you courage in your own family journeys.